Hey guys, Video Psych here. Now, you could say, yeah, for once I actually didn't smile on my thumbnail. What can I say? But moving on. So, what I'm going to be talking about is just basically why are so many people nowadays just breaking up? A lot of relationships just seem to not last nowadays. And I would say the simplest way to put it is that, breaking up is just so easy to do nowadays. Now, a lot of men that come to my channel, of course, will talk about sometimes, about women, coming into relationships with them and taking half or more than half of their money and such. And I will read this comment here, or I would say at least a few comments. I love this topic. Call me a realist. What would happen to me in a relationship? I can only speak for myself. She would become my girlfriend, my fiance, and my wife. As the years pass, she would change. Maybe I would change. We would drift apart. One morning, she would arise and decide she wanted to find herself. She would cash out of the relationship, taking at least 70% of my assets. It is as if she would leave, or it isn't. I swear. If she would leave, it's when I would be money ahead, falling in love with a new 44-foot sailboat, skipping the wife altogether. And I just said, well, normally it's half. Normally. When you become married, both of your earnings go together as one. If you don't want this, then simply don't get married. Thankfully, we aren't forced into this like some other countries are still to this day. And then he said, you're absolutely correct. I realize I always sound slightly against relationships. It's just that I haven't witnessed breakups or I have witnessed breakups amongst friends. It's kind of hard to read this. It's kind of blurry. Cousins and coworkers that have shattered my own beliefs. I know it shows in my responses. I wish I could still believe in love. I really do. I appreciate your excellent discussions. Greatly. Cheers. And I said, thanks. And moving on from that. And again, it is just so easy to break up nowadays. And in many cases, it could be even easier to just be by yourself on your own rather than being with somebody because, with today's technology, life has become in some ways very simple. I mean, we used to have to, I remember when I used to live in Burlington, right next to the Mississippi. And what the wife used to have to do is that in order to get the tub ready for the husband when he got back from work is that she had to go all the way down the frickin' bluff, which is like at least 100 feet tall, go to the Mississippi River and get 1 or 2 buckets of water, just however many that she could carry. She would probably put the 2 buckets on a stick on her back, and then she would have to walk all the way back up to wherever their house was in their town, which could be anywhere from a mile or two to, maybe if they're lucky enough, maybe they lived right next to the Mississippi, right next door, and so she didn't have to walk as far. But even so, they would have to always make multiple trips back up and down this river down the bluff. And so, to say the least, it's a good thing that nowadays we have something called plumbing. But that's just one instance in how, life has become so much easier. Whereas, sometimes we just don't even have to have, a soulmate take care of all these things for us. And so, when it comes down to it, if we have even the slightest reason to break up with somebody, was because they have either become bored with them or because they've been around with them long enough and they feel like moving on and they don't feel like, I just don't feel like, being around this person forever for the rest of my life. Because, being around somebody for that long just it's like, yeah, I just don't see it. But, of course, then you have, of course, the occasional person, or in some cases, like some men would say, a woman would come up to them and act like they like them. Maybe they're a celebrity, maybe they're a movie star, maybe they're an artist. And then, of course, they marry this person without question sometimes, and naively will marry them sometimes. And then before they know it, they want to break up with them within the next few years because they have just married somebody that didn't actually care about them in the first place, or they were just trying to marry some trophy wife that they're trying to show off their ego with, and then try to make some excuse like, oh, she's just a bitch, when they should have probably not married them anyway. But I think you guys get the point. But if for any reason, let's say somebody takes like 70% of like the earnings. Now, sometimes this could be towards domestic abuse. Sometimes, let's say, because one time, not too long ago, actually, a friend of mine from work actually got, labeled for domestic abuse. And you don't even actually have to hurt anybody for domestic abuse. You could even just, like, let's say, get mad and break something, or kick a door when you're mad, or punch a pillow when you get mad in an argument. And they could go up to a court and say, hey, this person broke this when we were arguing. This is domestic abuse. And possibly even get more of the cut in some cases. So just so you guys know, get to know the law a bit before, really getting angry. Because there's a chance that, you might get a bit screwed. Now, of course, this doesn't always happen. And lots of times I think, it's just spread out, 50-50 with the earnings. But again, that's just something to keep in mind. And also, when you're marrying somebody, and just like I talked about values in one of my recent videos, make sure that the person's values align with yours, that you like this person, and they aren't just going to try and screw you over. I mean, sometimes it might happen anyway, but that's just something to take into account, that you aren't just marrying somebody in a committed relationship that doesn't actually like you, if you know what I mean. And so, again, just be careful with who you go out with. And again, I think that's just another reason why people are breaking up in the first place, is because they aren't being careful enough with whoever they're going out with, again, and making sure that this person might or might not screw them over. But, lots of people nowadays seem to also just play life like it's a game. They always try to take advantage of many things in this country for granted. And this is, of course, the result. Of course, one day relationships might go back a bit more towards more of a normal or normalcy, normality, whatever you want to call it. It might go back to that one day, but I'm guessing that this is going to be a bit of a long-term problem as long as things continue the way that they are. So, of course, with that being said, I will end this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.